What is up, everybody? I am Taylor. It is sometime in August 9th, 2023, and this is the Cranky Comic Book Review Show. It's where I review the week's comics that I bought. My own stupidly hard-earned money working for a fantastic job that had me on call center training all day. Don't worry, I'm not going to answer your calls if you ever call in. You don't need to know my job. Just know that it's just emergency training for backup reasons, because in case you guys didn't know, I'm a people person. And talking to everybody on the phone is my dream. Anyways, we're going to see if I can spread this nonsense out into 10 minutes for the algorithm. I don't know if it's possible. Let's find out together. Because I didn't get many books this week. Worst to best. That's how I go. Let's do it. All right, the worst book of the week. And, okay, I've cut back on what I'm buying. Also, it was just a shit week as far as I can tell. There wasn't much out there. There's maybe one book I wanted to get that I didn't. I will trade weight it. I've been trade weighting books more and more to save said hard-earned money because it's hard-earned and I can read them while I'm training for the call center. Anyways, Night Terrors number whatever the hell. The full title. Dawn of DC, Night Terrors number 3. This is Josh Williamson writing. Bunch of different people on art, including Casper Wingard, who you'll see later on the list, and who the hell else? Frank Martin and Troy Pateri. This is the continuation of the Dawn of DC's Night Terrors thing. It's a creature named Insomniac, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Looking for a Night Stone to do something. Is it Terror Stone or Dream Stone? I don't even know. Hang on, let's see if we can figure this out. Nightmare Stone, that's what it is. Okay, so Insomnia is hunting in nightmares, looking for this stone that has some power to do something or something. Doesn't matter. Nothing. It's an event book, so nothing's going to change at the end of this, or it'll all change for like a week, and then it'll all change back in the next event. It's just stupid. And this is all right. It does star a dead man, Boston Brand, who's one of my favorite DC characters. I like Boston Brand quite a bit. And Casper Wingard's art is great, and the rest of them are fine. The way they even split up the art sometimes makes sense. I don't love it when books tend to do this, when they just, have different artists working on different pages. But look, Casper. But I will say that Josh Williamson makes effective use of the switching and, the reasons at least sort of makes sense. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it adds to the story, but I just don't hate it. What I do not like is if the ending, it's a cliffhanger ending, and it's comics, it's monthly, it's going to get wrapped up into next month or 2 months or Alpha or Omega or Night Terrors to your mom. It'll eventually get wrapped up. But if the cliffhanger at the end of this is what I think it is, good God is it stupid, and good God is it dumb, and good God is it just a fucking annoying, and that's the problem. And if it's not, and I'm wrong, then the setup is not leading in, and I'm confused, and either way I don't think it's great storytelling. I honestly would rather be confused and not be right on this one, but if it is what I think it is, it's irritatingly bad. It's irritatingly just predictable and annoying and everything else. So that's why it's my least favorite book of the week. It's not awful. Nothing this week is awful. I've only got, 5 books. So if they're all awful, I'm really picking books wrong. I mean, it was not a great week for books. But, all right, next. Avengers number 4. This one, it could be entertaining. They're both at about the same level. Night Terrors and Avengers are both the same level. This is Jed MacKay, who's kind of turning into Marvel's version of Josh Williamson. He's sort of taken over the Marvel-y thingies and doing thingies that nobody else wants to do. He's on the Premier Team title, I guess, unless you count the X-Men, the non-mutant team title of the Avengers, and they're going up against the City or something. I don't know. Dumb villains that are all just seem created just to fight for these 2 or 3 issues, and then they're going to disappear forever. Yeah, which is fine. That's how the 60s all worked. And then 40 years later, everyone brought back the villains and turned them into something. So maybe 40 years from now, the City or the Future or whatever these villains are called are going to be amazing. But right now, it's just kind of it's fine. The art by Who is the art by? Sia Villa. I don't love it. It's not awful. It's chunky in places. It just doesn't really seem super consistent. It's serviceable. It's not horrible. At least it's the same artist throughout, but it just doesn't seem to be the right fit for an Avengers book to my mind. Now that doesn't mean much. I mean, it is what it is. That's really just an opinion based thing. There's lots of panel within panels and wonky offset shit, and I'm old and cranky, and I like my panels to be rectangular and tell a story. There's some confusing shit in here panel wise, and there's characters I'm like, who the hell is that supposed to be? But whatever. This is one where this is the issue where the heroes are all beat. If you're having a multi-issue arc where they're up against like these things, right? You have the first issue where they describe the problem, and then that goes on for a bit, and then you have the heroes are all down on their luck and they're all about to be destroyed. That's this, without spoiling a whole lot. Next will come, they're either going to switch around who they're fighting and take over the world, or they're going to have some glimmer of hope, and then maybe in 4 issues, or maybe next issue, depending on how it all works, depending on the timing, how much they want to stretch it out, they will survive and learn a valuable lesson about teamwork and camaraderie. That's just how this works. It's not awful. It's not fantastic. It just doesn't seem grand. And, like, the villains don't seem that convincing. Like, for villains that came out of nowhere, it's just kind of like, all right, that's, I guess, like, yeah, sure. Now, this complaint's going to seem a little hollow because there's a book I put a lot higher that's also an X-Men thing with some villains. And for whatever reason, we'll get into it and I ramble more about that one. Because I don't really plan this shit out. I just kind of ramble and talk, and for some reason some of you watch this. We'll see if I can talk myself into why I like that other book better. And anyways, Avengers. I might be real close to done with this one. I might give it through this arc and see. Chad McKay is real hit or miss for me. Like, I gave up on Doctor Strange because I don't care. I still like his Moon Knight, but a lot of what he does I just don't give a shit. And this is borderline I don't give a shit right now, so we will see. All right, next. I forgot that this is coming out. I forgot it kind of like the title is and the image enough on the cover is enough to make me pass it over, but it's a slow week, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really did like the first issue. So, Barnstormers. This was originally, I think, a Comixology book. Scott Snyder and Tula Lotay. Tula Lotay's art is fantastic. I don't know their gender. I guess I maybe should have researched, but painted, probably digitally. Maybe not. I'm guessing digitally. It looks like they're at least digitally colored or whatever, hybrid. Just kind of great. I really dig it. Sketchy. Kind of reminds me of like a shitty Bill Sienkiewicz, and that's not an insult. Like, Bill Sienkiewicz is probably on my Mount Rushmore. So, like, so much shitty version of that is I'm fine with. There are panel insets. It's not all squares, but it does. It is pretty effective, and I like the atmospheric nature of this. This is a Prohibition era romance story, which is also not necessarily my jam, but that's the nice thing about stories, right? If it's a great story, the genre doesn't matter. You can get sucked in by something that's not your typical fare and be like, oh, that's actually kind of nice. And Scott Snyder, I think, is going outside of his comfort zone with this, or at least what he's known for, and telling a pretty decent tale. It's sort of maybe kidnapping, maybe two star-crossed lovers on a crime spree / murder run / it all goes horribly wrong. It's got a bit of noir to it. It's pretty atmospheric, and it kind of reminds me of like the old romance movies and stuff, and I dig it. I think the first issue, this is $5 and it collects, I believe, 2 issues of the Comixology, so you're getting a pretty thick, beefy boy book for this. I still might have trade weighted it because I think it's just probably a better read, all collected. But it was a slow week and whatever, and it'll be concluded. So I'm guessing issue 3 will collect the last 2 of this, and it'll be fine. So we got, I think, one more after this. But thus far, you get the backstory of some of the characters. You get some of the motivations of why they've been chased, and it's a good middle ground. The weird spread of we didn't have our page count quite right, and we needed to break up the digital issues. I don't know how this would read digitally. I'm betting just fine. I don't have a Comixology subscription, and I have not read it digitally. But yeah, it's not a bad book, honestly. And then next we have. Remember when I said there's villains that are just kind of introduced and they're not really effective and they don't seem scary and they're kind of their own weird thing? Well, if done right, they can be kind of scary and they can have things and they can be an effective story. Children of the Vault #1. This is an X book. I have not bought any X books since that Hellfire Gala a couple of years ago. There's one going on this year or the last year or whatever. It's like 3 years ago maybe, and it really bugged me. Like whenever they kicked Hickman off, that was kind of when I was done. And then Jerry Duggan took over, and I'm not a fan. And this is not that. This I think this is the fall of X or whatever. Maybe not even tied into that. Oh yeah, this fall. Look, see, fall of X. I'm not reading any other X books. I don't have a lot of context to go on. So, like, I don't have a lot of history. I know vaguely who the Children of the Vault are because I read it, I think, in a Hickman book. And there are these super creatures that live in an artificial city where time passes differently, and they're, every minute here is like a billion minutes there or something. And, yeah, it's like, so they're advanced, future-y thingies. Kind of a lot like the city in the Avengers, but this is better done. This is Dennis Camp on the writing, and that makes a big difference. I don't love everything Dennis Camp writes either, but I really like this book. And the art is The art is Luca Maresca, and I'm not familiar, but I don't hate it. It's not really amazing, but I don't think it's really bad. Like, you get Cable, you get Bishop, and then you get the Children of the Future. And like what Dennis Camp does is he's better at setting up the Children of the Future as a threat, because I think it doesn't use the omniscient narrator. Like Jed MacKay kind of has this omnipresent narrator thing going with the Avengers, which is not fantastic. So you just kind of get the outsider's perspective of things. Here, you get some of the Children of the Vault perspective, but then you also get the perspective of Bishop and Cable, and that helps ground the book. So there you go. I talked myself into why I liked it better. I don't think it's fantastic, but I think it is really pretty solid. And I will be reading the next two. The art, like I said, it is decent. I don't necessarily love some of the slower panels, and I don't love the depiction of Cable especially, but that's whatever. It's Cable. It's never been my favorite character. And they turned him 90s in this, and there's jokes. There's actually a couple jokes that landed pretty well in here, which if you catch them, they're great. If you don't, you're not going to miss them, which is also the best thing about this humor. And this sets up the Children of the Future for possible herodom, possible villainy, possible... You don't know what they're up to, which is nice. Like, the city, the motives are pretty clear in the Avengers, and that's also a thing. But the vague motives here, like, I think the best villains think they're doing good. But, they have their reasons, at least, for their villainy. And, like, otherwise you just really do get cartoon comic book villains, which, again, I'm reading the comic book. I'm well aware. But you have to have, like, some reason for the villains to be effective. That's why like Dr. Doom and stuff and Magneto are both effective villains because, they think they're right in their own minds and they're not just doing it just to be evil dicks, although being evil dicks is kind of fun. So, yeah. Children of the Vault, surprisingly good book. Came close to actually being the book of the week. However, look, I'm after over 10 minutes. My God, no one's going to watch this long, so whatever. Swan Songs #2. Casper Winger again on the art. And W. Maxwell Prince, the writer of Ice Cream Man. And this is Swan Songs is about endings. And that's the Ice Cream Man is a horror thing. This is a little bit different. I think that W. Maxwell Prince likes to play with these sort of anthology titles where each issue is a different story around a theme. And the theme of Swan Songs, like I said, is endings. And he's unlike Ice Cream Man, where he's working with the same artist every issue. In Swan Songs, there's a different artist every issue. And you get Casper Wingard, who I really like Casper's style. Not for everybody, I'm sure, because I tend to like more abstracted, not comic book-y, typical comic book-y styles. But I probably can't show that one. There's a lot of nakedness in this book. But yeah, it's a story about falling in love and then out of love and a fable, possibly. This one's a little vague, too. What might be real or might have happened or could be real or could have happened, you're not 100% clear. In Ice Cream Man, you're usually pretty certain of, the ending. And this one, while I did say the book is about endings, this ending's a little vague, which is kind of nice, honestly. Because, it'll probably take me, at least one more read of this to, really digest it. This is more about falling out of love than falling in love. So that's where the endings of this one tie in. It's about what happens when you are not in love anymore, and this takes it to the extreme in a manner that really could probably only be told in either an animated thing or a comic book thing or a science fiction movie. I mean, wait, I just listed 3 different things. It's this genre works well for the story, and Casper Wingard is good at mixing up the art styles that he uses a bit enough to tell this story and tell this fun tale. So, like, if you want to hear 2 bitter exes go at it about why they're not together anymore, read Swan Songs. My favorite book of the week. Although this, honestly, even though I only got 5 books, not a god-awful week. Honestly, really. Children of Vault, really good. Barnstormers, still surprisingly solid. And these 2 are okay. They're not awful. This one has the potential to be awful if what I think happened is happening. But Avengers, it's fine. So that's what I got. Don't be a dick, even if you only bought 5 books this week and you managed to stretch it out into a 15-minute video somehow. Suckers that kept watching. See ya.